Okay, so this is going to be like a fast-paced talk, and I will promise you I'll not throw a lot of tech jargons, but these are the insights that we have learned when we have worked for large transformations for both banks and fintech, right? And I promise, I don't think myself and Bharat met before, but this is going to sound like chapter 2 of observability, and do I get this? Okay, so we all heard observability, right, as a word, right? We are building complex systems. Do I get an echo? Okay. So we are building complex platforms, and usually you would hear this question, should I buy this platform or build this platform? And we've also always had this debate of, is it build or buy? But the reality is that you are composing multiple platforms and putting together to have this one coherent digital journey. But this is what happens, right? Like when you're mixing and matching multiple things, it's possible that one part of the system can fail, and that can have a very diverse effect on your entire ecosystem. So what do, right? You should expect failures in an unexpected way. But you have heard of this thing called observability, right? I have the stack, and I can observe which part of the system fails and go exactly fix this, which is fantastic, right? But here is the question. If you think you need to observe only the part of the application that you're building, then you would in for a surprise, because no single app lives in isolation in your entire enterprise. So you end up observing the whole ecosystem, right? Which is good. You need to observe. But here is what happens, right? Until you get the bill, right? There are a lot of institutions where the observability bill is higher than your production system, right? And this is a fact. It's because you are generating lots and lots of data. And imagine the system that you're observing is also generating humongous amount of data, right? If you're not paying attention, it's more likely that the cost of running your observability stack is going to go through the roof, and you will have a surprise. And here is the hard learning, is that there is something called sampling when it comes to observability. You don't need to observe the entire production traffic, right? That's like crazy. But we end up doing it. Do you know why? Why are you observing 100% of your traffic? Any takers? Like, why should you observe? Because you already have production systems that's capturing transactional data, but you still end up observing, every single call, every single system, every single parameter. But the banking industry feels I need to observe 100% of the traffic all the time, right? And the reason is quite simple, right? If you say I have a complex system and you have a failure in a part of the system, right? If you're not observing 100%, it's more likely that if you sample, you will miss the most interesting part, or in the other ways, you will miss the part where you have errors, right? And this is one of the reasons why your observability cost keeps going up. Until recently, you can't do this, right? You can't say, I don't want to observe everything, but I want to observe things that I think is interesting. Let's say the part where I have errors, I have issues, right? So this is called tail sampling, right? So you don't have to decide your sampling strategy in the beginning. You can push it down towards the end, and you can sample the data, right? So what happens is that you can say, I want to capture 100% of the errors, and let's say 5% of my random traffic, because I still need to know how my systems is doing overall. And this should bring your cost drastically, right? And if you ask me, is this available to every product out there in the industry? Should I have to have a special release of something? If you have embraced open tracing, you can do this now. You can go back to your organization and say, why are we sampling 100% of our traffic? Can I just not observe the error, right? If you have embraced open telemetry and open tracing, so you can do this in the collector and say, just observe the error, because that's what I'm most interested on, and this should bring down your bill, right? So that's my first trend I thought I should share. Moving on. Right, so every one of us is in the digital journey, and we are in the banking industry. And if I have to ask one single question, like what is the most critical incident that has happened in your journey, right? Like, God forbid, this doesn't happen. But the number one, we have seen this over and over again, right? We want to go cloud native. We want to build cloud native apps. We want to take your new shiny systems to production. The one mistake that we keep making again and again is, what is that? What is the one single mistake that keeps happening again and again when it comes to security? Like someone somewhere in your ecosystem will check in secrets to something, right? Like either passwords or access tokens that get checked into your source control. So there was this security conference, and they demonstrated on the stage that if you check in your secrets in less than 2 minutes, your servers are compromised, right? And we all know this. We all know that we should not check in secrets, but your best programmer, your best developer on the worst day would make a mistake, right? And what has been our traditional response to this? I will monitor everybody, right? I will monitor every single check-in. If there is anything that resembles like a secret, I will stop it from getting into my source control, right? This works, but the realization is you're putting constraints from what is natural, right? People do check in. So if you have systems to protect this from happening, people would say, override and then end up checking in. Because many tools out there, they all have a false positive. It will not look like a secret, but the tool will say you're checking in a secret, and you have this, muscle memory where people would simply ignore and check in things. So what's the insight here? Insight is there is also another approach of, how do you handle with secrets? So what if I tell you that you're free to check in secrets, but if there is a tool that helps you transparently, whenever you check it in, encrypts only the password part of your config and leaves the rest, as it is, right? So you can, again, like all insights, you can do this now, right? You don't have to wait for some other time in the future. And irrespective of the cloud, irrespective of your, the encryption standard set by your CISO, this tool will allow you to protect your secrets, right? So if you're in any phase in your digital transformation, and if you go and ask your team how you're handling secrets, you'll be surprised, how little is there to protect your infrastructure. So that's from Mozilla. It's called SecretOps. It's a very neat tool. It'll keep your config files as it is, but it'll also work with the IDE. So when you open and edit, it'll look like everything is transparent, but the moment you hit save, on the disk it gets encrypted. So that's the trend to watch out for. So I'm not saying get rid of all your monitoring tools. In addition to this, have this, right? So that's the second trend. The third trend, again with security, right? Have people heard of this term zero trust? Yeah, we all do, right? Basically, it says that once upon a time, you had this illusion of trust, which is called a perimeter of security. And everybody outside this fort, or so to speak, is non-trusted, right? And this is the era where if you just have a firewall, you're good, right? If you just have a DMZ zone, you're good. But that era is gone now, and we all know this, right? But here is the question. Have we embraced zero trust for the entire org? Maybe yes, maybe no, right? You will have probably zero trust for your production systems. The question that I'm asking is, yes, there are lots of systems that enable biometric authentication. There is Face ID, fingerprint, and so on. You may have multi-factor auth, right? You get an SMS and you can validate the user. But here is the question. I think you still have a perimeter-based model, because think of this in your ecosystem. Like, how do you build and release software, right? The one place where everything, going back to the analogy, the kitchen where everything gets cooked, is that protected, right? Do you have zero trust in your CI/CD? I would say 9 out of 10 will not have this. even if you have zero trust for your production system. It's because people will argue that I need password to build, I need this access to run tests. So often we have seen lots of attack vectors originate from your CI/CD systems. So the trend that we have observed is if you have the rigor of protecting your critical systems with zero trust model, embrace the same for your CI, right, on your CD. So no machine can spin up a job unless it is authenticated and it knows what the role it is doing, right? You can't have the system that builds the payment artifact have the same level of security as, let's say, some other images in your assets, right? So that's the third trend I want to leave, is that zero trust is awesome, and we have learned it, what it can do to us in production, embrace in CI/CD, right? Right, so I think I'm good on time. So the last trend that I want to share, and then I can open up for questions, is about data, right? I'm sure somebody talked about, let's have more than one environment in the bank, because production used to be the only thing where everything works, right? And I'm sure most of us will not admit, but we do this mistake of reusing production data in lower environments. Yes, no, for various reasons, right? I want to test. I want to train the model. There is no data like production data. Even though if I create a fake data, your synthetic data does not reflect the nature in production, right? We've all faced this problem, and in the end, we've done, like how we've worked against secrets, we are now working against data and saying, I will tokenize, I will anonymize, but again, you will always have a use case that needs unmasked, unanonymized data, right? That's given. So what do we end up doing? Maybe creating a trust environment and say, okay, production data is okay to be used for this use case. Or we will compromise and saying, I will just generate a random data and give it to you because this is the best I can do. But what if I tell you there is a third option? And the third option is this, right? When you need production-like data, what if you have a model that will learn your nuances of production data and synthesize based on the nuances of your production, right? It is still not production, but it will learn the distribution. So it will understand the schema of your production tables and you can control how much data you want. You want a sample size, you want to scale down or scale up. But this synthetic data will mirror your production in terms of all its statistical behavior. So you can use it for your machine learning, you can use it for testing, even you can use it for your database index optimization because it's the same distribution or similar distribution. So this is called synthetic data vault. It's a Python library. You can go and tell your teams and use it now. It can learn also not just a single table, but if you have multiple complex normalized schema, it can learn the distributions and generate fake data, which is like production, so that everybody is happy, right? So that's I thought I'll pick 4 trends and then present to this audience. So if I have to summarize, if you are doing a microservices-based architecture, if you don't have observability, you are not having any tools to debug, but make sure that what you observe need not be 100%, but if it is 100%, you have now a choice to tweak back to say, I will observe only the error, not the entire traffic. And yeah, be very careful with handling secrets because yeah, that's a one-on-one mistakes we keep happening, we keep doing. So there are now better tools, embrace the tools. Yeah, zero trust is awesome. Always extend it for your CI/CD as well. And data is everything. Handle the data carefully because the user has not given consent to use production data for any other purpose. So if you are doing it in some form, you're violating the Data Privacy Act. So it's important that we embrace synthetic tools to generate prod data. I have 45 seconds, and that's my talk. Yeah.